So I got a trash truck. We'll start there. I do. I've got a couple of trash trucks. Actually, I got this one trash truck. Her name is Lucy. Okay, and Lucy is she looks old. She's not as old as she looks, but we converted her from a septic truck to a trash truck, and we put this cute little blue body on it. She maybe holds 8 yards, 10 yards of waste at a time, and throughout the years, Lucy's kind of been beaten up with different drivers that didn't care, drivers that do care, and then they stop caring. You know, it's a work truck. Well, with a trash truck, you have multiple different components. You guys ever seen a trash truck? You guys ever seen how they work? You know, you got the little tipper on the back that takes that trash can and tips it up into the back into what we call the hopper. The hopper is this piece that grabs all this stuff, contains it all, and inside the hopper is what we call the apron, right, or the lining that kind of guards it from hitting the ground. You dump it in there and just stops it right there. And then from there you have the sweep. The sweep is the piece that comes out, grabs all that content and pushes it up into the body, and then it hits the blade. The blade is one of the most important pieces of it, and they all are important, but it's very important because with anything, with trash truck, you need compaction, right? We need to be able to pick up multiple yards of content and put it inside this vehicle. That way we can haul it off. Because, like, for example, last weekend, we went over and picked up a bunch of yard waste. Okay, yard waste is pine needle sticks, whatever else. And I threw about 35 bags in the back of my pickup truck. My pickup truck is 9 feet long by 8 feet wide. It's a big old truck. I filled that truck up with 35 bags. Tall, right? Above my head. I meet up with my trash truck, and we load it from my truck into the trash truck. Well, with the compaction in the blade is that piece that comes forward into the sweep, and it creates the compaction. Well, that 35 bags that was completely filled my truck up took up maybe 2 inches inside that trash truck. That's why you can get 120 yards or something like that instead of an 8-yard box. Crazy, right? Love it. It's amazing. Now, obviously, everything has to work together. Well, with this one, again, Lucy, she's been driven hard and she's been beat up. And what's that? Somebody say something. What did you say? Anyway. Yes, sir. And and one thing that hurts trash trucks is things that are stronger than trash trucks, like car parts. It is the hardest thing on trash trucks is specifically rotors. People will do a brake change on their car, and they'll take the rotor, store them in the truck. If the guys don't see it, then that sweep takes that rotor and runs it across that apron and starts putting dents in that apron. Eventually, the rotor, which is harder than the apron, will puncture the apron. Well, Lucy has a puncture. She does. It's about 16 inches wide and about 4 to 5 inches in height, okay? So what do you think happens whenever you sweep through on that apron? As it sweeps through and is compacting, you get a certain amount of content that will through that little hole and then stay on property or wherever the truck is sitting, right? And so when you drive off, you have this little pile of garbage on the ground, and this is how we track down Lucy. We don't need GPS. We just kind of go on the road, and those are little breadcrumbs, and we kind of follow her around. Okay, well, she's getting everything done, you know? Well, what we figured out with her is that if you leave enough trash in the hopper, it will actually stuff inside that hole, and you just kind of leave about 3 inches and just kind of sweep through and don't push it all the way back like you normally would on a regular, and just kind of keep a little trash in there, and it doesn't spill out, right? It's pretty cool. So there's a quick fix in this thing. Obviously, the right fix would be to replace the apron, or at least a temporary fix would be to weld in a spot right there on the apron. Now, the problem is this. Think about this. Everybody's thinking in their head, just grab a piece of steel, find a welder, and weld a piece of steel over that hole, right? That makes sense. Except for if it's protruding above the apron, the sweep is going to catch it and rip a bigger hole, right? Because you don't, whenever things break, you never break the welds. You always break the metal around the welds. So if we have a 1/4-inch plate blocking this hole, that sweep's going to come down, hit that 1/4-inch plate, and rip out more apron. Now we've got a 8-inch hole by 16 to 18 inches wide, right? So the right way of doing this would be to replace the apron. Makes sense, right? but that means you got to have time. That means you have to take Lucy and put her down in the shop for a week while the mechanics work on her apron, and that's just not logical right now because we're busy, right? Makes sense? Yeah, makes sense. So you can't. So every so often we get a driver that leaves stuff on the ground for us, and we get the phone call. And most customers are pretty nice in the beginning. They're like, hey, just let you know there's something wrong with your truck. They left a dead mouse on the road right in front of my driveway. Can you guys get this cleaned up? Sure. And then, hey, no dead mouse this time, but there's glass and there's horse manure, and can you guys get this cleaned up? Sure. The third phone call is like, hey, you dumb... As you can imagine, right? It's like, oh my gosh, get this figured out and fixed. And so you get this angry customer, and before they're patient, they're kind, they're like, hey, listen, just want to let you know, right? And one thing I learned about trash customers is you can be their hero one time and it only lasts about a week. Because if you don't do the exact right thing the following week, you're now their worst enemy number one, right? Like with septic or the stuff I used to do before, plumbing-wise, you get a backup. That happens every, 2, 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I'm the hero for that length of time because I saved them for Christmas, right? And they love me. But I can only save somebody with trash for a week's length. And then if we screw up again, then it's a bad day for everybody, right? So they're patient with us until the third, fourth time. And now they want to cancel because there's trash in front of their house. I know. Tell me about it. It's exactly. I'm like, dude, it's only $8. We'll get it fixed. We'll get it picked up. So anyway, I want you guys to remember that story, and we're going to come back to it. Okay? Can you guys put a pin in that? Yeah? Good. Remember that story. It's a very good story. And if you want to come to my house, I have the truck at my house. You got a flat tire right now, and you can look at Lucy and say hello. Okay? Now, what I want to talk about today is habits. We all have habits, yeah? You guys know what I'm talking about when I say habits? Somebody yell out a habit that you know about. You don't have to be doing it, but yell out a habit that you guys know about. Anybody?
Brushing teeth.
Brushing your teeth is a habit. What'd you say?
Tithing.
Tithing's a habit. Very good. What other kind of habits do you know about? Smoking. That's a habit. What else? Anybody? Anger management. Yelling at, not anger management, but at least angry driving. Road rage. That could be a habit. Oh, don't, right? That could be a habit. What else? What else is a habit? What's that? Driving fast could be a habit, right? Assuming things that are not really true. That could be a habit. Yeah? Anybody ever have that one? What's that? That's judgment. So I'm going to read to you guys real quick a series of habits that tend to go unnoticed or ignored, just throughout your daily life. Okay, these are just things that I thought of. Comparing your life to others. If you don't do that, you know somebody that does. Social media is completely filled with those people, right? That's why it's so doggone popular. What else we got in here? Perfectionism. That's a habit that you don't even know, right? What about procrastination? Yes, laziness, right? It's like, That's my favorite one in my life. I'm really good at the lazy part, the procrastination part. Seriously, I'm so good at it. I mean, check it out. I'm really, really good at this. Lack of personal goals. Anybody can attest to that one. And it doesn't have to be long-term goals. It could be short-term goals, like get up on time. Do the stuff you're supposed to do. I'm like, I want to sleep in, hit that snooze button, lack of personal goals. I mean, personal goals are something that could be big or small, right? You guys know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay. What else we got in here? Focusing on the bad. Anybody know anybody that does that? Isolating yourself. And that's not like running away, hiding in a closet. That is completely whenever you're in the middle of something, you shut up and you disappear somewhere deep inside and nobody can find you, see you. You're there, but you're not home, right? Being a victim. This is a big one. We'll touch on this one. Need to be right. Needing to be right, Joe. needing to be in charge, Vera. Needing to be liked at all costs. Social media is a success because of this one. Little white lies. You guys know what those are? Those are the ones that, well, I understand, but think about this. You don't even realize we do them. I mean, okay, so a little story with me. I got a past, thank goodness, right? But I learned from my past. But I took stuff like the little white lies that I had in my past into my current relationship, and they look like this. I would get it because I didn't want to go home. I didn't, my past, I had some issues with going home, and that was just because I didn't want to catch crap from my ex. You guys know what I'm talking about. You go home, and it's like, dude, I just worked my butt off all day. I'm really not in the mood to get yelled at when I get home. Anybody been there? Okay, it's just me. That's not a problem. Anyway, so this is how it goes. If you end up getting there, we can talk, and I'll tell you what not to do, because I don't know what to do in the deal. But here's what I did, was simple little white lies. A text, when are you going to be home? I'm not sure, I'm working still. Could be late. I wasn't working. I created work so I didn't have to go home. Little white lies, right? Or you come up with some excuse as to a reason that you didn't need to be somewhere. You guys know what I'm talking about? And so this became such a habit with everything that I did. I mean, when you have customers, and the customers are on a need-to-know basis, and so you tell them whatever it takes to get them to shut up, right? Little white lies. Oh yeah, no, yeah, me, I never did the whole truck broke down thing because I don't like to speak things that are not into existence. However voodoo that sounds, but I don't do that. So it's like, you come up with some excuse that is not 100% true, but it's partly true. I can't make it out there. Why? That's the truth. The other part as to why is probably not going to be the truth. I'm not going to tell them I got a dentist appointment today, or I just don't want to. There's the things I'm not going to tell them, and so that becomes a little white lie. It became such a habit that whenever I got in my current relationship, that I began to give those little white lies, little excuses to her. And I realized that probably 2-3 months in, I'm like, why am I lying to her? She's got no dog in this fight. There's no reason. She's giving me no reason to lie, but it became such a habit, you know what I'm talking about, that I just continued it on, right? We've also got the needing to be right. Is there anybody in here that needs to be right? Right? I mean, we can all admit it, because the moment that you say no and the moment that you are proven wrong by somebody, you get in a fight over it, you now are in the category of need to be right. Make sense? And being right is not wrong until you force it onto somebody, and then it becomes wrong, or becomes the habit, or becomes a thing that pulls you away from what you're supposed to be doing. You guys know what I'm talking about? Yes? Needing to be right. Needing to be liked. This was me when I was a kid. I would want to be liked no matter what it took. No matter what it took. I would climb flagpoles just to get the attention, and then accidentally fall off the flagpoles and get more attention. Oh, this is great. I mean, and all the girls came up, oh my God, Josh, and they like pet my hand. It was amazing. Absolutely amazing. I got a lot of attention that way. But it hurt. And so then you milk it out. You're like, oh yeah. And it doesn't hurt that bad, but you just make it look like a little bit worse. Little white lies, but I got to be liked. There's nobody here that's ever been like that, I'm sure. That again is just me, right there. Ben's like, never. You're kind of people tick me off. This one here is probably the most common that I'm seeing in the world today, and that is victimhood. The victimhood of life. And victimhood goes in 1 through 10, right? So victimhood is basically where something bad happens, and then you get the likes for your bad happening, right? And this looks in multiple different ways. It could be on social media. Oh, I had a bad day at the grocery store. This lady cut me off, and blah, blah, blah. And then all of a sudden, yeah, those people in these parking lots, they and then all of a sudden you get all these comments from people around you. Or you go home and you're sit together. It's like, how was your day? Oh. Well, I went to Costco. And that's all you need right there. You're a victim the moment you walk into Costco. I'm just letting you know. You have no choice but to be a victim once you walk into Costco. And then you proceed to tell the story of what happens once you're in Costco, right? And it's most of the time it's that little bitty just sitting in the middle of the freaking aisle and doesn't leave any room to get around, right? You guys know what I'm talking about. I need an amen on that one because that one's like, holy smoke. And you just want to throw the can of soup that's in your bag, but you know that's going to be blunt force trauma because it's huge. It's a gallon, you know? It's like you can't just throw a can without opening the box. And so you got to throw either the box or the big gallon jug of green chili at their head. And it you know it won't end well, right? And so you just lob it. It came off the shelf. I saw the whole thing. White lie. Right? But or it's that one person that does this. And of course they have like a daughter or a friend. Those are my least favorites. There's a friend right here, right around, what would you call this, 5 o'clock? And they're just talking in your ear. Is that what you guys do? You're just like, no consideration of anybody around you. It's like, oh my gosh, dude, I gotta go. Seriously, I need to get the milk and get out of here. There's no other place that sells 2 gallons of milk for $3.50. I need to go. What's that?
They charge by the minute.
No doubt. It was like, holy smokes. I couldn't imagine working there. Oh my gosh. That's just where you would have the spirit of slap come on you and end up rolling into choke 'em out time. You know, it's like, I don't know how you would do it. But that's a victim. And then that victimhood takes you over the top because now what, you know, some people, maybe not in Costco, but I've never seen a fight break out in Costco. I have seen fights break out on Black Friday. Amazing times. I wish they would bring that back. Because Black Friday today is no longer what Black Friday used to be. It used to be a brawl, man. That was a lot of fun, a great challenge. Anybody just used to fight during Black Friday? Like get in there and make, dude, we used to make plans, like draw them up. We had like people in corners and spots. We have a list and we'd go hunting, man. It was like we'd get out there and we would divide and conquer this store. I mean, the one time you go to Kohl's. Kohl's is the worst place to go back in the day. And you go through this thing and you get in a line that stays outside by 500 people. They open the doors and it's like, ding, go! And everybody just runs and you're flying through their clothes, you're flying everywhere. And it's only specific sections of the store that is contained with the deals. And so you go through the middle of this thing, you grab it and everything, throw it in there. They don't have carts at Kohl's, and not enough. And so you get carrying them around like this here, and then you come around the corner, and Kohl's, you go like this, around the sides, and then down the middle, right? That's what they have. They have 3 aisles. That's it. And so what happens is you come around the corner, and oh, there's a line. So you follow this line. Now you're going down the middle, and there's the end. It's like, how did this happen? It's only been 10 minutes. And there is a line a mile long inside of a store that's not even that big, right? And so what you do is you learn how to get creative. So you take all your content and you take it over to the sweatpants section that's not on sale, throw it underneath there, and leave. Come back 3 hours later after you just conquered Walmart, right? And then you go in there, you grab your gear, and you go pay. There's nobody in line because they're going to Walmart. Right? But we used to do this stuff. That's Black Friday, and that's the good stuff. But man, I would see people fighting just like you see in the movies, man. They're throwing stuff, and it's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I never got involved. But I would just walk away. But it was absolutely amazing. These young ladies, the old ladies, whatever they were, most of them were ladies. No offense. It's just how it ended up being. And a lot of grandmas. And they're in there swinging, man. I mean, the stuff was flying. You ever seen this? No? You never been at a party? Yeah, I bet. And it's like, it was so much fun to watch. If you're into people watching. And then that's where you get to the other habit of judgment. Anybody do the judging thing? You sit around you ever just sit, where were we? I was at the airport the other day with my daughter, and we're sitting there, and her and I were just sitting there like, oh my gosh, who would walk out in public like that? Like, seriously, anybody do this? You know, it's like there's this one guy in skinny sweatpants, And that's enough to be said right there. You're disrespecting the world around you. What are you doing? You know? And so I'm judging, and my daughter and I judge, and we think very similar. And she's like, oh my gosh, look at those shoes. I'm like, oh, they're kind of cute. She's like, no, they're not. I'm like, I think they're cute. She's like, no, they're not. I'm like, I'm kidding. They're terrible. What is wrong with people? But another habit, right? We run into these little habits that create what? What do these things do? Because we got the big habits, right? You have the big addictions. We can call a habit an addiction as well. You have the bigger ones: alcoholism, drugs, sex, porno, all the different things that I just said alcoholism, all the things that they have programs for, gambling, right? But what leads to those? What leads to those bigger habits? I guarantee you the kid that come out and hit the floor is not sitting there like, I can't wait to gamble, you know? Something has to get him there, right? The little 2-year-old that's sitting there playing with his blocks is not like, oh, well, you know, gambling. No, they might be trading, but they're not gambling unless they've been trained. That's not an inherent thing. You're not sitting there like, ooh, can I have a twisted tea at 2 years old? At 6 years old. Maybe at 15 they do that, but at 2, 6, 8, they're not thinking about how they can get a buzz on. That's trained, right? And how do people know that alcohol is a relaxing thing to some people? That's trained. Because you don't know this unless somebody tells you or you've done it. How do you know that you're going to get high on drugs? Either you try it. Why would you try it? Where do you get the access to that? See, all that stuff is trained. That stuff is taught to people. And how do they get it? They get it through what? Coping mechanisms, right? Right? So let's think about this. I want to show you something. Remember that trash truck I had? Remember that?
Lucy.
Right? Lucy. The trash truck, right? So Lucy is a perfect example of what happens in the world right now, in our lives. We have garbage in, garbage out all day long, right? We take garbage, we run it through, and we do it right the way that God created us. It's going to go right up there, and God's going to get rid of it for us. But in our life, we've all had it before. Maybe you do, maybe you don't. But at some point in your life, you've had a hole in your apron, where every time you sweep through and your life does what it's supposed to do, it's leaving little piles of content on the ground, right? You know what I'm talking about? Most of us getting in there. And so if you think about it, this is where you get like, no, I'm fine. You okay? You can just tell if somebody's not okay. Like, no, I'm fine. It's not like, you know the people that have no aprons, it just lands on the floor, right? Or the lazy people that just don't even pick up their garbage. They're just like, oh my gosh, pick up your garbage. But most people are not completely messed up. Most people just have a hole that need to get fixed, right? And so we know these people because we see little piles behind them. And then what do? Hey, just want to let you know that you're leaving dead mice on the ground as you're walking. Like, oh, okay, thank you so much. And they clean it up. Are you okay? Oh, yeah, I'm good. But you're still leaving dead mice and garbage on the ground. Oh, okay. And eventually you're like, dude, I'm done. You know what I'm talking about? You have people that you're working with, people that you're helping, and you're giving them advice and you're giving them stuff that only they can do. Only them and God can do. Now, this is how the world works, okay? The world in pop psychology does this way. Listen, you got a hole in your life. Let's go back to your childhood and figure out why. And we do, and that's very valid. You go back to childhood and you can figure out exactly why you were trained to go into these habits that create this hole in your life. Right? That create this big problem in your life. And so you go through this thing, and what the world teaches you is they teach you coping mechanisms. They teach you how to deal with it, and that is the best way to do it is leave about 3 inches off the back wall and just don't let the garbage push through. Nobody will ever know. But then you're always stuck with trash in your hopper, and you start stinking after a while. It doesn't matter how good you look. You could paint a turd gold and it's still a gold turd. Right? I'm just saying. But you leave, that's what the world teaches you, is coping mechanisms. And that's what we do. We just kind of work through it. And then we go to church and we learn that God will change your apron for you. God has a mechanic shop that you take your trash truck to, and he will swap your apron out and you'll be whole and clean. You can do what you need to do. You're like, awesome. And so you do that. Amen. Anybody ever done that? I've done that a couple, 3 times. Right? And then what we do, we get out there and we get in our habits again. We get lazy. Little white lies. Get car parts going through there and puncturing holes in our apron again. And so what do? Do we go back to the mechanic shop? No, we can't do that. I don't have time. I just don't have time. Can I hear an amen on this? Am I the only person again in this room that has these problems? So we go back to God. God, I really want this done. And so here's what God says. Come back to the mechanic shop. I'll hook you up. And you're like, okay, I'll get there. How's Tuesday? And God's like, I'm wide open, dude. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Come on in whenever you want to. Well, Tuesday around 7 o'clock. Was that work? I'm open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. There's always a bay open for you. Okay, cool. Well, I'll be there Tuesday. Well, by the time Tuesday comes around, an emergency happened. And you forget about your hopper. You start thinking about somebody else's hopper because, maybe the dog got hit by the car. It happens to people. And now you've got another hole in your apron. And you don't know how to deal with that and this at the same time. So what do? We start coping. God, help me. God, help me. God, help me. He's like, come here. And I got a bay open for you. Come here. We'll get this done. And he's like, I don't have time because I'm mourning over here, or this is frustrating me over here. And now I've got Joe yelling at me because I've got garbage on the ground in front of his house. And then you start getting anxiety. And you start getting worried. And you start getting stressed. And then you start having negative things happen to your body, your physical body. And why? Because we don't stop and let God do what God does. Take it into the shop and replace that apron. That's all it takes, is to stop and let God do what God does. Does that make sense? I know it's way easier said than done. But I'll tell you what, guys, when we live in these habits, these are just daily things that we do. You may know, you may not know that you don't. This is where you sit down with God and say, God, what are my habits? And can you show me how to get rid of them? And sometimes it is appropriate to patch a hole on an apron. That's fine. But the fix is to replace it. And God, I guarantee, is way faster at replacing aprons than my mechanic is. I promise. So, way back in the day, I'm going to say, how old am I now? I'm 46. So, 18 years ago, I gave up my addiction to pornography. I'm 18 years clean of pornography, right? And I'll tell you what, if you've never been there, it's a rough road to walk. Because it doesn't just affect you, it affects your marriage, it affects your kids, it affects your life, it affects everything around you, right? It consumes you like anything else. And I had a conversation with my dad about this. And this is what he told me. And it revolutionized my life. It sounds super stupid and simple. But I never thought of it like this. He goes, Josh, if you really want to get rid of this addiction, then you can have it like this. I said, oh, really? How's that? He's like, just choose not to. I'm like, dude, that's not how it works. He's like, no, it's exactly how it works. 100%, it's exactly how it works. You make the choice. Now, he goes, you might have to make that choice 1,500 times in a day. But you make that choice. And that's God changes your apron in your trash truck. It's one choice at a time. And I'll tell you what, it wasn't the easiest road to walk. But in about a month, I've been clean.
Praise God.
Amazing. It doesn't even come back around. Like you get this little thing in your ears like, hey, I'm like, shut up. Seriously, shut up. Leave me alone. Right? Just shut up. Now, I want to show you guys something. Because we can talk about all these things in life and how it works and everything else like that, but what does the Bible say? How does the Bible say to fix it? I can tell you God does this, but what does the Bible say? So I want to throw some verses at you guys, okay? And my favorite verse of all is Philippians 4:8-9. That is by far my favorite verse in the world. But we're going to jump up a little bit above that one, go Philippians 4:6-7. And this is where you look at the anxiety part of things. What's that? Be anxious for nothing. It says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and supplication, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. Amen. That's God changing your apron. Right? If you got anxiety, be anxious for nothing. Don't worry. Stop stressing. Who stresses throughout the day, throughout the week? Who can be honest? Like legit stresses. Like to the point of where it affects your relationships, or the point to where you have to say, I'm sorry, that wasn't to you. That wasn't about you. We were watching this show yesterday called Young Sheldon. You guys ever seen this thing? I don't know what season we're in, but it's hilarious right now. It wasn't as funny as it is right now. It's way better as the season gets, which is rare. It's getting way better. Well, there's a grandma in this thing, and one of the young men in the main families ended up knocking up a 30-year-old lady. He's 17. No, she's 30. Well, and whenever we'll compare notes later. Well, she's 30. It's on record. I have it on video. What's that?
What difference does she make?
It doesn't. So anyway, this young lady that's pregnant, her parents won't let her come home. Her parents are mad at her, so she's living with the grandma. Right? And the grandma is always giving her grandson, a hard time. Okay? And so this young lady told the father of her baby that it's okay for him to date another girl. Okay? So now she's regretting it. She's sitting on the couch and grandma comes home and she's like, what's wrong with you? And she's like, nothing. The baby daddy is dating somebody else. And she's like, and now she gets all mad. She's like, I'm going to go wring his neck. She's like, no, I told him it's okay. She's like, oh, so there's no problem here. And she's like, the young pregnant lady, she's like, no, there's no problem here at all. She's like, oh, you're having second thoughts. She's like, I'm just regretting it. And she's like, oh, okay. And so what the grandma does, and this is what maybe we do, maybe we don't do it, I thought was hilarious. And she looks at the young lady, she's like, okay. So there's no problems here? She's like, no problems here. She's like, fine. Then I'm going to go call Dale and pick a fight. And so she goes and calls the guy that she's kind of sort of dating on and off and starts picking a fight with this guy. Hilarious to me. I loved it. And I started laughing, I almost fell out of the couch. And that was with this foot stand up. You know, it's like, it was amazing to me. I'm like, you're going to go pick a fight with some dude that's just trying to eat his peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And, you know, but that's what stress does. You take it out on somebody else. For what reason? Why do we do it? If we get ourselves to the point to where we let the anxiety and stuff take over, then you don't end up with Philippians 4:8-9, which again is my favorite Bible verse, my life Bible verse. I'm going to read it to you real quick. Hang on a second, let me get there. He already put it up there. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, whatever things are noble, whatever things are just, whatever things are pure, whatever things are lovely, whatever things are of a good report, if there be any virtue and there be any praiseworthy, meditate on these things. That's how I got through most of my life issues, is right there. I also want to run you guys over to 1 John 4:18. For there is no fear in love. Because what is love? God is love, right? God's the master mechanic. God is love. There is no fear in love. What does fear do? Fear brings on everything. Fear is the basis of almost every single habit we got, every addiction that we got, every problem we got. Fear. Fear is the opposite of love. There is no fear in love, but perfect love drives out fear, because fear has to do with punishment. You guys reading a different one? Maybe. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. Does that make sense to you guys? So if God is love, and we're afraid of, let's say you have a child or a grandchild that you track their cell phone. Anybody do this? I do this. I do this to everybody in my family. I track them. And you look on your tracker and you see your child in the national forest. Dude, I got scared. I'm like, what is she doing in the national forest? I know who lives up there. That's her little boyfriend who lives up there by the national forest. And then I look at it again this morning, and you know what? That thing is still pinging in the national forest. So I'm like, okay, she's camping. Who's she camping with? Right? Or is she camping, or is she gone? Now I'm getting into fear. This was this morning, before I get here to practice with you on praise and worship. So my head's in these different spaces. You guys know what I'm talking about? We're trying to get something done up here, and you got this stuff in your head, and you're just like, okay, God, you got to take this from me. I got to trust you with this deal. Because I got into fear. Rightfully, justifiably so. So I'm like, all right, God, is she okay? I didn't get no, she's in danger, you better go now. So I'm like, let's just go. Let's just play and trust God that everything's okay. We'll check the GPS after service. And see what's going on. But you get into fear, you get into things, that just mess with you. Mess with your head. It takes you completely off of focus. And it gets you your focus off of God. And God is love. Right? Let's roll over into Galatians 5:22 and 23. You guys know these ones, right? But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace. I'm going to say patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. Against such things there's no law. And then I want to roll up into 2 Timothy 1:7. For the Spirit of God gave us not, how does that say? I get this one all buggered up. For the Spirit of God gave us, there we go. For the Spirit God gave us does not make us timid, but gives us power, love, and self-discipline. I asked one of my best friends yesterday, I said, what is your hardest challenge you work through in your life right now? And my best friend tells me that the hardest thing is self-discipline. I'm going to say that's my hardest thing too, especially when you don't want to. Anybody ever get the I don't want us? It is a flipping worst habit I've ever seen. I don't want to. I don't want to make my bed. I don't want to wash the dishes. I don't want to not eat this bagel because it's delicious. Right? I don't want to go to the gym. I don't want to. You guys all been there. Every day, right? We're all there every single day. And then you look at it, it's like, I don't want to fold these socks. I love folding socks. So satisfying. Nobody else loves, who loves folding socks? The reason you love folding socks is because now you know what is left over, and it's done. It's just done. I will fold socks before pants. I love folding pants too, but socks is one of those things like it's done. It's out of my life because I hate socks. Right? So I make a pattern for my life to where it's like, okay, if I hate this, I got to do more of it. So I fold socks. And then what do you guys do with the leftover socks? What do you guys do with them? The ones that the partner ran away? Throw in a basket, and within, what do you do with them?
Put it in the laundry room, wait for the other week
Me, and they never show up. They're just like, oh my gosh. I use them for fire starter. By the way, it's the best fire starter in the world. So if you want to get rid of your spare socks, bring them to me, and I will use them. I promise. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely, I finally figured out what to use those spare socks for. Fire starter. It's amazing. It's like kindling. It burns longer than kindling. Absolutely awesome. Now, if you got somebody that sweats a lot or doesn't shower enough, and they sleep on a pillow, or they have socks that don't change, those are the greatest fire starters. Oh man, they will light up like a candle, baby, and they sit there. I mean, your little fire things for your cooking. A sock, bro. It'll work. It'll work great. Absolutely great. So, this one here, this is from Proverbs 4:23. And this is what I think is amazing. And to me, what I think is amazing, some people don't think is quite as amazing. But this blows, not the verse itself, but when it was written, blows me away. It says, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. In Proverbs 4:23, guard your heart above all else, for it determines the course of your life. That was written over 4,000 years ago, and it still rings true today. Why? That's in the New International Translation or something like that. Why? Because people don't change. Current man is no better on the heart level as the people of antiquity. We're all the same. That's why God's promises are true yesterday, today, and forever. Because people don't change. But yet, people think we change, and we keep trying to reinvent the daggum wheel. We think we can beat it this time. Out of thousands of years of people living, I'm going to be the one to actually beat it this time. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. That's why you read the Bible. It is packed with these kinds of verses. Guard your heart. Let God be love, or God is love. Let him work through your life. Put the mind of Christ on. All these things, people don't change. God doesn't change. That's why the answers always work. Does that make sense?